meeting, and today is Monday, December the 21st, 2020. Before we begin, I would like to go over a few guidelines, so I got to read this to help us navigate the system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. 1, we ask that members of the public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. The moderator for tonight is City Clerk Elisa Tenti, and she reserves the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. 2, council members and city staff will control their own mute button. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. 3, if a council member or staff wishes to speak, they will raise their hands, and I will call members by stating their name clearly for our audio listeners. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcripts will be made available to the public on the city's website. Although we will not have public meeting speaking tonight, unless it was already scheduled ahead of time, you can sign up to speak at our monthly council meeting. Please email Elisa Tenti to sign up by noon the day of the meeting, or you can submit written comments for the record by the same deadline. The email address is emtenti@kingston-newyork.gov. You can also, again, that's emtenti@kingston-ny.gov. You can also drop comments off at the drop box located outside the side door of the City Hall. We also encourage you to reach out to your committee chairs or your ward's representatives at any time. And Clerk Elisa Tenti is a moderator for today's meeting. She has a right to lock and pause the meeting to reject anyone who has behaved inappropriately. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance the chair, myself, Tony Davis, and we have committee members Patrick O'Reilly and Michelle Hurst. And sitting in for Ridley Scott Childress is Doug Coop. And and we do have Jeffrey Ventura Morel is here as well. Welcome, Jeffrey. And city staff, we have City Clerk Elisa Tenti. We have Superintendent of DPW Ed Norman, and we have Dan Quisnell from DPW. I do not see Ron Kuhn. I thought he was invited as well, but I do not see him. And we will have shortly at some point on the call as well, and Corp Counsel and Dan Garstein. And so welcome everyone. And we'll get started. I'm going to try to change this agenda around to accommodate everybody and get stuff out of the way. And the first thing and so today, right now, it's 6:36 is when the meeting officially started. And we have for new business and update from the Conservation Advisory Council. It's someone here to represent them. Is someone here to represent or give an update?
Tony, usually I will be the liaison, but I was not able to attend the last CAC meeting.
All righty. Is anyone from the CAC here? Okay, well, we'll have to look for this. Excuse me? All right, so we'll have to get that update at the next meeting. Going to get some things out of the way in regard to, it's 3 items on the agenda in regard to one particular street area, a location, and that's Orchard Street. And we have on the agenda 2A, I believe it's 2E and 2E, 2D, something like that in regard to Orchard Street. And Michelle, I know this is your ward, and you should have received communication earlier from City Engineer John Schulteis. Did you not receive that?
Yes, I received that information. Actually, I spoke with him earlier. We've been doing some work for looking at traffic calming devices and various issues that have been brought to me in the last couple of months that I've been putting on the agenda.
Okay, so his recommendation is that he wants to do further studies in regard to this area of Orchard Street and Wells Lane. And with the snow, it's hard for him to get out and do a good study. So he wants to wait for the snow to secede a little bit. And so he's requested that those 3 items be tabled. And I don't think I believe I need a motion to table it, though. And so I got to do all 3 of these these items separately, I guess. And so communication. Lisa, can you verify that? Do I have to do a communication? Or I can just table this, I believe, Elisa.
Right, there's no committee report to table
No
something.
report.
So just announce out loud what numbers you are tabling and what they are in reference to.
I believe if this has changed, I believe, and somebody correct me if not, 2A Orchard Street in regard to Wells Lane and Orchard Street. And is it 2A?
That was a communication from November about parking on Orchard Street.
Okay. And the other one is communications for Orchard Street, I believe is 2E.
2F, which is a speed study. 2E is actually the communication from 2A as well.
Yep. And then the other one is 2F, right?
Yes, 2F is a speed study sign that I asked to have done, a speed study report for Orchard Street.
Alrighty. So all these three items, and City Engineer John Schulteis is requesting that we table that until he can come back to the committee with further information and recommendations. So we're going to table them. Okay.
Yes.
Alrighty. So that's 2A, 2E, and 2F. Alrighty. Next item on the agenda was 2B, and which was the stop signs and study. John Schulteis sent out a communication in regard to chapter 390-92 schedule and 9 stop intersections. He states on there on that study, it's approximately 400 stop sign intersections. And if you want to go through that list, and he is recommending that you go through that list, but he's also he wants to have some time to make a comprehensive list in the near future of 60 locations that do not have no stop sign or yield signs installed. And so, and that is what he's put out there as in regard to his recommendation or information on that particular resolution. And
Tony,
Alderwoman Hirsch?
Yes, so actually it was my original communication that I put in that we make sure that we have legislation on all of our stop signs that are currently in, and City Engineer Schulteis felt that we should first work on a list of stop signs he believes should be put in. So he was going to come back to us with that.
Alrighty, and I see that City Engineer John Schulteis is here. And John, do you have anything to add to that?
Thanks, Tony. No, I don't at this time. If you can give me a little more time to come up with that list for you.
Okay. Alrighty. So it looks like we will be tabling that stop sign study as well at this time then. Any questions on that? So John, before you got on, we had had discussion about the table and all the communication in regard to Orchard Street location. So that's been tabled, and now we're tabling this stop sign study until you can get back to us with further information. And we're moving along here, Dan. 2 other items on here. It should be no problem. Is a removal of handicap signs at 93 Fair Street. And that's been brought to the committee's attention by Alderman Don Tollerman. And Don, do you have anything to say on this?
No, only it was put in years ago. And it has not been used for many years.
Okay, thank you. So, if there's no discussion, can I have a motion to Jeffrey Ventura Morel, a second, Patrick O'Reilly, and all in favor of removing this handicap sign at 93? I don't see Doug Coop. Are you still with us, Doug, for Rennie? Well, I see Doug there, but I see his face. But
Tony, do you want me to fill in for Rennie from here on in?
Yes, if you could. I'm assuming Doug must be. He said if he doesn't show up, that means it's something. He's been sick. I appreciate it, Rita. So Rita, you're going to sit in for Rennie Scott Childress, and are you in favor of that? Thank you. So we got Patrick, we got Jeffrey, we got Michelle, and we got Either Worth 10. Thank you. I'll get this to you, Lisa. The next communication is removal of a handicap sign at 37 Klingberg Avenue. Anything to add to that, Don?
The resident there has requested it. They no longer need it. That's all.
Okay, so if there's no discussion, can I have a motion? Michelle Hirsch, second. Jeffrey Ventura Morel, all in favor? Everybody's in favor. Thank you. Boom. I don't know how it is that. Okay, got those two items out of the way. Then I'm just coming back to see if there's anybody that has shown up for the Conservation Advisory Council, the CAC, to give us an update. No one. Okay. Next on the agenda, because and Superintendent Ed Norman has a prior engagement, and he's going to be here as long as he can, and so I'm going to put that up there. And Eleanor, you're going to have to wait a little bit, okay? And because I want to make sure that we have time to speak to Ed in regard to this before he has to go. Ed, I appreciate you showing up today, and so this is in regard to the snow removal. This past snow emergency is Ed and Patrick.
I think.
Yeah, Tony, can you tell Doug he's relieved of the duty?
Alrighty. Hey, Doug, if you're not feeling good, we got Rita that is willing to sit in. Is going to sit in for Rennie, so that, we don't want you to, stay here if you're not feeling well. Did you hear that, Doug? You're muted, Doug. You're muted, Doug.
Yes, thank you, Tony. I'm in and out. I'll stay for a while.
Alrighty, so we got Rita sitting in for you, okay? So don't worry about it if you need to leave. Thank you. Alrighty, so Ed, and welcome again. Thank you for showing up. Is there anything that you want to state or address before before people have questions for you?
Well, I just want to thank everybody for letting me come and address everyone here. I was hoping to get most of the council members here. I see a few are missing, but I also have Ryan here with me. He's off screen and on mute.
I see Ryan.
Yep, and Dan Quisnell for any concerns with parking, what needs to happen for alternate side parking and ticketing sequence. So I guess, jump in if you got questions, let it fly.
Alrighty. So again, thank you, Ed, for showing up. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Ryan, for also being here. I'm going to address again. I just want to make sure that this is a productive meeting, and we're here to try to educate the public or re-educate the public on what we should do in regard to snow emergencies. So if we can limit the finger pointing or bashing, that would be helpful in this whole meeting. And please just raise your hand, and I will pick you as soon as I see you. And Michelle Hirsch, Alderwoman Hirsch, I should say. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chairman Davis. Thank you for coming to the meeting, Ed. I would actually just like some information on how it is that the city creates a plan for the storms, and at what point, like who monitors the weather and who makes the decisions of what the plan is and when the the men will be called in and what time they're given. So if you can speak on that, please.
Sure, absolutely. So ahead of the weather, we monitor National Weather Forecast, National Weather Service. I'm in close communication with the state DOT. They typically get the first weather reports. They then forward to me. I review them with Ryan Kuhn. We come up with a plan of attack of what we feel is going to be required for whatever they're predicting. We also go by what time constrictions we have in regard to when a storm starts and when it's supposed to stop. Then we have to base our evaluation of who to bring in on that amount of time and we basically have to work backwards. So initially we will bring in the on-duty foreman and the on-duty driver. They will come in, monitor. Typically they get a phone call from KPD or the fire department or a citizen to say, hey, it's getting a little slippery out here. We also, myself, I monitor. Ryan also monitors. From that point on, when they feel as though we need more personnel or I feel as though we need more personnel, I tell the on-call duty foreman to start making phone calls so that we get the next batch of trucks in. Now, from that point on, we basically have to go by what the estimated stop time of the storm is, and then back up using the hours allowed to work to justify when we actually bring in a general call out so that we have trucks on the road throughout the duration of the storm. So in a case the other day, first trucks were called in. I think it was 7:15 when I saw the first snow flurry down here. The on-call, I believe, came in about an hour later. He was then instructed to call in 3 more trucks. But the way we have to do it here, we have to go down a call-out list. I believe it took 16 or 18 calls to get the next 3 people in. From that point on, I'm monitoring on a portable radio because at that time I am not allowed to come in to work. I can come in and monitor and drive around, but I can't put the plow on the ground because at that point I would be taking work away from another union member. So I have to wait until, as well as my deputy, we have to wait until every single member has been called in, and those who come in and we run out of reserve, that's the first time Ryan and myself can actually come in and put a plow down and start working. So go ahead, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey?
I just have one quick question. So all of this that you're saying, that's per the CSEA contract?
Yes, it is. That's CSEA regulation.
Okay.
So
and
Ed, I just want to make it clarify and the people here and also all the ones out there listening. And so you see snow at 7:15 p.m. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes,
All
that's when we first see the first snow flurries coming down. And it took about an hour and a half to actually get an amount of snowfall down to actually start plowing, to utilize plows. Because you don't start plowing until you get a couple inches on the ground.
And that's when your foreman then makes the call to the workers to come in. And you have to go down the list.
Tony, I still have the floor.
Say it again.
I still have the floor.
I'm just trying to make sure that the people who are listening here are understanding what Ed has already explained. All right. That's what we're trying to get clarified here. So so he makes the phone call, and then you said he got 3 workers between 18 to 20 minutes before 3 workers responded.
No, we have to call out. So the foreman or Ryan Kuhn himself would make the phone calls. I don't know what the exact number is, but I believe it was somewhere up of, let's say, 16 or plus phone calls to get 3 drivers to come in.
Okay.
From that point on until we hit general call out, which then happened, I believe I was probably pacing around the bedroom listening to the radio around 1:30 a.m., trying to monitor what was going on. At, I think, 2:30, between 2 and 2:30, we started the general call out, making all the phone calls. I think Ryan's here, but he's got the actual numbers with him of the amount of phone calls we had to make in order to get a substantial amount of people in. And for anybody who doesn't know, the CSEA contract allows people not to come in for overtime. So even though it's snowing, if there's a state of emergency, they do not have to come in if they don't want to.
So knowing the limitations of our ability to call men in after a full day of work, such as you're describing, why didn't we call in for mutual aid from other communities or take the county up on their offer that was made on Monday? I understand that they were concerned about coverage because of COVID, so they put out a call to all municipalities that they were offering mutual aid. The state offered mutual aid. Why did we not take them up? I mean, county plows hit the road at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Town of Ulster hit the road at 8 p.m. I mean, how are you going to get guys in at 3 a.m. when there's already a foot of snow on the ground?
We already had calls in to the county. I sat on a superintendent's meeting with the county commissioner and probably 16 other municipalities to say, yes, we will take on your staff if required. The county actually did help out with us. The state DOT helped out with us, and so did Town of Ulster.
Rita, is that your hand up? Yes. Rita Worthington, or all the women Worthington?
Michelle, are you done, Michelle?
Yeah, for now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you, Ed and Ryan, for coming in. All right. So obviously you guys are here because of the amount of complaints that have come in about the snow removal on the streets. I'm still getting calls about why streets are not plowed in Midtown. And so, I was going to ask the same question that Michelle asked. I was happy to see that the mayor and Governor Cuomo and County Exec Ryan, there was a big photograph in the paper declaring this upcoming snowstorm as a state of emergency. And so that let me know that they knew that this was coming and that we probably was going to need some help with this. I'm just baffled why we're still getting calls about why the streets are not. Someone just left my house asking me, why is our street still looking the way that it's looking right now? So I am baffled why we're still getting calls when obviously our city officials, namely our mayor, our governor, and our county exec knew this was coming. And so I just don't understand. And I know sometimes it's residents' fault with the parking situation, not moving their cars, things of that nature. But I just don't see justification and why I'm still receiving calls about this snowstorm coming up. So it's not a question, it's probably it's a comment, and it's more of a vent on behalf of people that have been calling me up to today and just a few minutes ago before I got on this call, why our streets are looking the way that they're looking. And so I need answers for that because I don't know what to tell them and I can't keep telling them it's because you didn't move your car. I can't keep, that's not a legitimate reason.
Hey,
Rita.
You good, Rita? You done, Rita? Hey, do you want to respond to that? And then Jeffrey, I see your hand.
Absolutely. I'll respond to that. First and foremost, we had the state DOT in Midtown. We had 2 of their trucks, a snowblower, along with 3 of our own vehicles doing snow removal in Midtown Thursday, I believe from probably 11:30 till 3 o'clock before they had to go and attend to their own work. So yes, the state DOT was in Kingston doing work, utilized them in the narrow streets because I could not get my 11-foot wide plows down the street due to non-compliance of parking. Their snow blower is a narrower piece of equipment. They were able to get somewhat picked up in a few of those streets in order for us to actually travel through the rest of the way. But, everybody's in the same boat here. Everybody's jammed up. You get 2 feet of snow, the state is still not caught up. The town of Ulster is still not caught up. The county's still not caught up. Everybody has to do their own work on top of this. And no other municipality is like the city of Kingston. They might have the same lane miles of road. We have 86 miles of road here, but we have 344 streets. Now, they don't have all that. All they have to do is put their plows down and go and maintain 30 miles an hour, and they can cover their ground in much more time with less people. And on top of that, they have 0 on-street parking in the town of Ulster. And that is from November till April. And if somebody leaves their car on there, town of Ulster police go out, call a tow truck, they yank it off the road. We do not have that here.
So, all right, first and foremost.
Hold on, Rita. Jeffrey had a question. I can come back to you.
Tony, I wasn't finished.
You had stated that you were finished with your question. That was
With my question, can I respond back to what he said?
Yes, and then Jeffrey. Thanks for waiting, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Ed, first and foremost, know that it's not a personal attack against you. Okay, understand that. Secondly, where do we stand now with getting the snow off the streets, getting these snowbanks out the way so people can get into their driveways and not run into snowbanks? Where do we stand now?
You're muted, Ed. Ed, you're muted.
Okay, sorry. Since Friday evening, we've had crews out doing snow removal because the amount of snow we got, we can't just keep pushing it to the curb. As you know, you get 2 feet of snow on a road. If we push it to the curb, especially in Midtown, it's covering every sidewalk. Part of it's probably going to be up on people's front stairs. So we can only push back so far. We can't get the full width of the automobile when we have that much snow. And then we have to fall back and then come back, pick up everything. The plows just take it and move it off to the side. They don't carry it. We're not carrying snow for 6 miles to locate it someplace with a plow. We have to get the streets open, make room where we can, then fall back because the same people who do the plowing are they're the ones that are also doing the snow removal. So it requires different equipment, different trucks. So that pool of people I have to use on both sides for different types. First, you go in and plow, open the street, salt everything, fall back if needed to do the snow removal. And snow removal is where it comes in better for us, that we then utilize the town of Ulster, state DOT, county to use their trucks to help us remove the snow. So I'm sorry, I muted myself again. So anyway, in continuation of that, we are still, as we speak, I have a crew out right now. I actually had to come back in from plowing with my deputy to do this meeting. So right now I have six people out there doing snow removal because out of 39 phone calls this afternoon at 3 o'clock as a continuation of the day, I got 6 available people.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, so I have a question and then I probably have a few follow-up questions. You said that the union contract basically allows people to say, when you call them, even if it's an emergency, they can say, no, I don't want to come in?
Yes, that is correct.
And when does that contract expire?
Next week.
Oh, so do we have a chance to renegotiate those terms? Is that being done?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I assure you, with every breath in my body, that I will not sign a piece of paper that does not have something in it that states people have to come to work and do the job that they signed up to do originally. They need to be here, just like the state has their contracts, the towns have their contracts. If you work for the state of New York, you will be terminated after so many misses of overtime. So if you tell them, like, whatever the number is, 2 or 3 times that you're turning down overtime during a snow emergency, they will terminate your employment.
Okay, and is this common in contracts? Is this this clause, or is this something that's unique to us?
No, this is everybody else is common. Everybody else has a snow emergency, contingency. You will come in no matter what when it's snowing. We somehow, some way, do not have that in our contract. So we have to hope at best and count on the 7 to 10 people that always come in and hope the rest follow. And that's all I have. I have no other power that way.
Okay, and then last question. Going back to something you said, that you have to use a smaller snow blower that you borrowed from the state because your plow doesn't fit in certain streets. So does that mean you don't have all the resources you need?
Typically, I would have all the resources until we get to these big storms. And I can't fiscally justify spending another couple $1 million for a snow event that happens every 3 to 4 years. The last time we had this problem was 2017. And yes, they had the exact same problems that we're having now. Different administration, different, everything about it was different. But on top of that, they had many more people than I do right now. They have more of a pool to choose from. We are at our bare bones limit for staffing. We have no extra people. If I'm trying to put a plan together, I'm only as good as the people who come in when they get called. So I can have a plan. I could have 100 people working for me, but if they don't come in, it's useless.
You done, Jeffrey?
Thank you, I'm done.
Doug, and then Michelle, and then Patrick, and then Don. Doug Coop.
Yeah, thank you. This is Alderman Doug Coop. I have a little different perspective. Ed, I think you've done a great job, and I thank you for it. You did a great job under very adverse conditions. Nature dropped a huge amount of snow. I don't know what the number was, 20 to 30 inches. It doesn't happen very often. You can't staff up and equipmentize to have everything available to handle that at any given time. You have the union regulations that you have to deal with. And yeah, we'll try and work on them. You have the non-compliance of people parking. And you just can't get those trucks through. And the configuration of our streets. So I'm not about to complain here on the micro or whether you should have had this piece of equipment available or someone else should have come in and helped you and so on and so on and so on and so forth. The point is you are getting the job done. And I think you've done a fine job under adverse conditions. They will always be adverse conditions. Snowstorms are always a big problem, and there's no perfect solution. There's no perfect scenario where everything happens and everyone's happy. There's always problems. So that's all I have to say on that. You're getting it done. Is it as quickly as we want? It never is. It was a ton of snow, and you got all these adverse conditions. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much to you and your crews.
Thank you. And Alderwoman Hirsch, then Don Tollerman, and then Patrick O'Reilly.
Don, Tony, if I may respond to that quickly.
Yes, go on.
Okay, thank you, Doug. I appreciate the comments, and the men and women of DPW appreciate that. But I'm not here for a pat on the back. I have a job to do. it gets done. Yes, you know, when we have a storm of this caliber, it takes longer to do everything. On a typical storm, we become used to, you know, 5-6 inches at the since I've been here since 2008. I don't think we've had anything, or 2018 rather. I don't think we've had anything more than a 8 to 10 inch storm. When we get a nominal snowfall amount of in that 4 to 6 inch range, that gives me, we can handle that, and we can get enough done in that short period of time to get the alternate side parking to work. We can get through the city, do one side, wait for the changeover, do the other side. But if you multiply that by the amount we have, it you know, you're taking triple and quadruple the amount of time, because not only do you have to keep handling it, going back through every street after everybody throws their snow back into the street, you're on every street 10 times, and there's no other way around it. I have instructed all my staff, as of this past storm, to videotape, take pictures, anything related to private people or even commercial people plowing their parking lots, putting it in the streets, doing their sidewalks, their driveways, snow blowing into the streets, because first and foremost, that's illegal. Every time that happens, that slows me down. So on a big storm, when everybody's doing it, and I make 2 or 3 passes down the street, I come back an hour later and it looks like I haven't even been there. So it's everybody having to do the right thing that is going to help us. And I don't want to just keep emphasizing on, you know, there's no compliance or no people not coming in. We need to work together, every department. We need KPD to work with us. We need parking enforcement to work with us. We need the public to work with us. Everybody needs to be a part of this. And we need to educate people. And if they're not getting the education, you know, put out flyers, do something. I'm sure each and every one of you, while you were campaigning, went and knocked on every door in your neighborhood. If this is what it's going to take to get people to get in compliance so they understand it, then maybe that's something we should address. But I can't do it alone. That's obvious. It can't be done. When we get an exorbitant amount of snow, we just are not, the city is not set up for that kind of scenario. So, thank you.
Alderwoman Hirsch.
I'm sorry, but I have a really hard time hearing blame towards the public. I spoke to Howard Ball this weekend, and he told me that as of Wednesday afternoon, when we already knew that we were looking at blizzard-like conditions with 3 to 4 inches of snow falling, that we were going to be doing a 4 a.m. call-in of the men. And I just think that if we had called in the men and the women at 8 o'clock, we might have had a better chance of them showing up for their overtime, because they wouldn't have to dig themselves out of a foot of snow already. And I imagine that our plowing a foot of snow would have been much easier had we started earlier. I'm sure there's a lot more wear and tear on our trucks when we're plowing a foot of snow the first time, instead of starting at 8 o'clock. So,
may I respond?
Yes, go on.
Okay, you're getting false information. We started dialing the phones at 2:30 in the morning. The first truck came on a general call out was 3 o'clock. We had already had 6 or 7 trucks out previous to 3 o'clock in the morning, doing the emergency snow routes and then falling back to secondary roads. And again, I can't call everybody in, because if I called everybody in at that time, they would be off the streets by noontime the next day. And you would have nobody on the streets from DPW from 12 o'clock that Thursday till 8 o'clock Thursday night.
okay. And what time did the state come in?
The state was there at 11 o'clock.
Okay. And what time did any other mutual aid come in?
They were there through early in the morning. I had the county there monitoring Hurley Avenue. Town of Ulster was on the upper end on East Chester Street, monitoring that side. The state was doing Albany Avenue, parts of Broadway, of Beale Street. You know, we had every agency out here trying to help us. They're not familiar with the internal parts of the city. And for those of you who rode with me over this weekend, you see what it's like to be out there and do that, going through these neighborhoods. Now, you take somebody that's used to plowing a highway, we're going to have more problems with them hitting cars, getting stuck. You know, it's just, I got to keep them in areas that they're used to plowing in.
So just say again when the 4 trucks came in, at what time?
The initial call went out at, I believe, probably at between 8 and 9 o'clock is when the initial call that the on-call duty foreman, that we call it, they come in with their on-call driver. Then he makes the phone calls to see who he can get. We put 4 to 5 trucks on in order to maintain the emergency routes. So however many calls it took him to get, and Ryan, if you're here, you can pipe in anytime. You have the numbers, they're written down. So
will this all this information be in a report, an after action plan report on the response to the storm? Because 24 hours after the storm started, we had ambulances responding, police responding to a crisis and murder of a child in Midtown, and these ambulances got stuck. And so I want to know if we're going to have an action report that details our response to this storm.
We never do have any kind of action report. We come in, we plow, we get it done, we go home. We had 3 trucks in that neighborhood 2 blocks away from that street at the time of the shooting. Ryan Kuhn was one of them. He was there. He heard the shots. We just hadn't got to that particular street yet at that time. And then once that happened, everything got locked up. The ambulance came in, and then everybody came in around it. There was probably 10 police cars on one side and another dozen on the other side. The reason why the ambulance couldn't get out of there is because all the police couldn't move their cars fast enough. And they actually took the victim, the one who was still able to, they took him or her into a police car and brought them up to the hospital. And I don't think I should say any more about that because it's ongoing.
Yeah, I think that our community suffered a lot since this, in this last year, and this blizzard, of course, was difficult on everyone. I appreciate the work that your men have put in. I have no problem with the men and women of DPW. I just think that we were really behind the 8 ball on this. And I just hope that in the future we can do better. I think that blaming the community, especially in the Midtown area where people don't have a lot of access to off-street parking, is just really fair right now to the community.
We had a perfect storm here with everything involved. It's not any one person, and we can applaud everybody. I'll take full responsibility. In the end, it's me. It's my show. But everything needs to happen together. So let's come up with a different plan. Obviously, in snow events like this, the alternate side of the parking is not working. So let's figure something else out. At one point in the city here, we had no parking on the streets in a snow emergency. That's before my time. Then the previous administration, one of them, Mike Schupp, put that into effect, did a pilot program. It didn't work. It hasn't worked yet. So let's focus on what we can do to change how we do things so it's better for everybody.
Michelle, you done?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Yep, Don Tollerman, and then Patrick.
Hi, Ed. This is Don Tollerman. So I think that's a great idea. I think we should take a fresh look at this because we all agree it didn't work, right, with the alternate side of the street and the public's ability to move their cars or inability to move their cars. So I think we will do that. And the fact that your challenges with the union situation and your people's ability to not show up, that's something they think we're going to have to also look at and and renegotiate that contract. So my question though is if you could be a Monday morning quarterback for a minute, is there anything that we could have done differently given the perfect storm, given the situation? Is there anything that could have been done sooner or differently?
Okay, thank you, Don. Yeah, there's no, everybody else is the Monday morning quarterback. I'm the guy that's there actually putting a plan into place. And when I don't have the tools that I need to get the job done, that's the problem. So tools being personnel, equipment, people doing what they're supposed to do. That's what makes it better. Better communication among everyone here, the public. I can only do what I can do with the tools I'm given. So if you want to put 10 more guys on, great. That's fantastic. And I'll buy another $1.5 million worth of equipment for them to drive. For what? For the next storm to come along at maybe 3 years from now? I mean, At some point, it's, you got to weigh the options here. And okay, guys, yeah, it took us 4 days to get it cleaned up and we're still working on it. But it takes us 2 full days and then some typically in a small storm of 3 to 4 inches.
Yeah.
So, if you look at the exponential amount of snow, what do you expect? I mean, there's only so much can be done in a given day with the people that I have. And regardless of whether they have to show up or not, it's just the sheer volume, the type of city we live in, the narrow streets. Where does it go? And compliance. And, there's a whole network of stuff that has to fall into place perfectly in order to get this done. Yeah. And with that kind of storm, we do not have the time it takes to get one side of the street clean for people to move all the way over. We try to get it done. Some of them we do get done. Some of them don't. And some of them we have to come back in the late hours of the night to do snow removal. And that takes several nights as well. And again, that's when I utilize the other municipalities, because before I bring in those municipalities, I have to have every single person who works at DPW, whoever is going to come in, they have to be there before I can bring in any outside resources.
Yeah.
So I have to have every single one of my people who is available. I have to call them. They have to say no or yes. And whoever's left over at the end, if I'm still short, then I can bring in outside resources.
Okay. Well, I want to just also underline what Doug Coop said, which is given what the resources that you have and the obstacles that you had, you and the team did a good job, did an excellent job. So thank you.
Patrick O'Reilly.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Ed, what you're saying makes sense about the manpower, about the storm, and about it being a perfect storm. So we have to fix some things, maybe. Like, one of the things we could work on is the manpower. Why do you have to make 16 calls to get 3 people to come in? What can we do to make that? What can we do to make these people want to come to work? I'm not one to punish people, like saying, if you don't come in, you're going to lose your job. I don't like that kind of mentality. What I'm saying is, what can we do to motivate these people to come into work instead of the only motivation being you're going to get fired? What can we do to motivate these people to come into work? Anything, Ed? Can you give me, or anybody here on the council has an idea how to get people to come in during a snow emergency? I know I'm putting it on Ed, but guess what? We all got to think out of the box. We all got to think about how to get these people into work to help him out during the snow emergency. Now, this is just one thing I'm pointing to, but we got to take one thing at a time, maybe, and say, like, look, we're going to try to fix this, and then we're going to try to fix this. what can we do? Thank you, Tony.
May I respond?
Yes, Ed.
Okay. We had in place with this previous contract a snow incentive policy that if people made enough call-ins, they would get paid an additional sum of money on top of their salaries and on top of overtime. So they could work all the overtime they want. And then still, if they made a certain amount of calls, they would then get rewarded by this snow incentive. And what we found over the last couple of years is that the same 5 to 7 people were getting the snow incentive awards. But they're also the same 5 to 7 people that would come in no matter what, because that's what they do. They take pride in their jobs and they're always available. They're the guys I can always count on. I know they're going to be there. So that snow incentive actually sunsets next week with the end of this contract. I don't think we're putting it back in there. So, morale, morale's always an issue, but, you say the discipline. Well, people do things that are wrong. They need to be held accountable. And I'm one to hold people accountable. I don't ask anybody to do anything that I haven't already done myself. I am out in these trucks day in, day out. There's not a soul in that department that says, you don't understand because you don't do this. Well, that's because I'm in it up to my neck. I'm in the trucks. I probably spent 30 plus hours of overtime over the weekend in the trucks plowing myself, as well as Ryan. So that's the other thing. If he and I weren't there, we'd be two less people out in the trucks. So, incentives, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. If we're moving forward, maybe we have an incentive that's merit-based. If you do the right thing, you make the grade, you make the amount of storms, do a merit-based. That way it kind of evens it out for everybody. I just don't understand. Again, I'm not here. I mean, morale's a part of it, but there's been problems here in the city of Kingston for many, many years. And if you ask Howard Ball, he'll tell you flat out. Since 2010, when Mike Shupp lost all his people, 15 people, this is where it stemmed from.
Are they overworked?
Short-handed ever since.
Are they overburdened with work, or what is that? Is that what it is? They just.
Well, from the standpoint of efficiency, we're doing the most amount of work DPW has ever done with the least amount of people it's ever had. So from a standpoint of efficiency, and we're still getting it done most of the time, I think we're on the right track. Would I like another complement of men and equipment to draw off of in the event that I have people out on vacation, people calling in sick, people out on compensation, whatever it is. I got several people out with COVID. So I'm down to bare bones. And when I'm stealing people, robbing Peter to pay Paul, when I'm taking parks guys and putting them on the back of garbage trucks because I don't have enough people to actually come in and do the work, that's just telling me that, okay, what's the next step? More people. The math doesn't lie.
I don't know what happened there.
You done, Patrick?
Yeah, I got another question, Ed.
All right, go on. And then Rita.
Okay, thanks. Some people miss their garbage pickup because of the snow. What's the city? What are you doing about? Is there any kind of? Can they call you and ask you to come get it, or what can they do?
Yes, we postponed garbage because out of necessity, because with a 2-foot snow coming in, I couldn't be playing slalom around garbage cans in the streets. So we suspended trash for that day and then utilized all of the sanitation workers to put in plow vehicles, laboring for, shoveling sidewalks, anything that we needed, they were used. As far as garbage pickup, if people didn't get their trash out to the street, our guys don't crawl across the snowbanks to then get it and, risk injury to themselves to pull a 50-pound or 60-pound or 70-pound garbage can across the snowbanks. So we will then, anybody who we did miss, they call it to DPW. The dispatcher makes note of where it is, who it is, where it is, and then we will address that, accordingly.
All right, Ed. I'm still, my question about the getting people to come in to work. I don't, that's a problem. I think we all need to work on that somehow. We all need to think, Tony, myself, everybody on the council, we need to help Ed to think about how to get these people into work, when there's a snow emergency. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we need to think of solutions for that. Thank you.
Rita, Alderwoman Worthington.
Thank you, Tony. So, yeah, I agree with Patrick and Michelle. Ed, you got to tell us, you got to let us know, what we can do to help you, because the optics are not good. And I know I go on and on and on about Midtown because this is my ward. The optics are not good. And when we see, I'm going back to, again, those photos in the paper saying we got a good handle on this storm and warning people to hunker down and, to get ready for this storm. And then to see the outcome, the optics do not look good. So once again, no blame on you. I saw you out here. I've talked to you throughout this whole thing, right? So you told me what was going on. So no personal blame on you or DPW. It's just, we got to do better. We have to do better. And we need you along with the administration to tell us how we can do better, because this is not good. This is not good. And I understand that it may take a couple of days to clean up and everything, but we got to put, blaming the constituents and the residents and for non-compliance. I'm not with that at all. All right. Because this is what we do. This is our jobs, right? For the city of Kingston. And so we got to do better. That's my comment. You can respond if you want to. I want you to know it's not personal attack against you.
Yes, Rita, I appreciate that. Believe me, your ward is not the only one. Every ward across the city had non-compliance. Every single one of them. I think Dan Quisnell is here. If you would like for him to speak to the tickets that were issued, I think there was 500 tickets issued throughout this storm. I reached out to the chief to see how many cars were actually towed for being non-compliant, to get them off the streets. I think that amount was 9. So 500 tickets issued, 9 tows. That does not help me do my job.
Alderwoman Hirsch.
Yeah, so just regarding the tickets, and my understanding, the first night was that everyone should be parked on the odd side of the street so that the even side could be plowed, yet the even side didn't get plowed, and it was the odd side getting plowed. I mean, we even have a county legislator on Facebook complaining about that they didn't plow the right side of the street. So it just seemed really, really unfair that we have these rules about where to park and when to park, and they can't get plowed so that people can move their cars and they get ticketed.
Right. I mean, when we had the state come in and the other municipalities, they don't get the whole even odd side for the alternate side parking. There were several locations where absolutely wrong side of the street was plowed, because they just don't know. When I turned them loose, no, I mean, they started working with us during the day. The problem is there was cars on both sides of the road the entire duration of the storm, from the very beginning till the very end. They're out there still. So I can only do what I can do. If I can't get a truck through the streets, I can't get it done. And if I have to do everything where there's cars on both sides, Everything has to be done with a small vehicle, and with this amount of snowfall, it cannot keep up. Anybody who rode with me the other day with the truck can realize, what the clearances is between the vehicles on the street and the actual truck that's trying to go through there. Tony was sticking his head out the window, looking at the right side. I got my head out the left side, looking out the window with about an inch to spare on each side. Is that right, Tony?
That's correct.
So it's a very difficult and trying time, because it's that way all over the city, and every single one of my drivers have to deal with that. And if we don't have the room to do it, now we're going 2 and 3 miles an hour through these streets trying to get them done, because if we go any faster, we're crashing into cars. So I think the fastest I really ever get with the big city plow truck is basically 12 to 15 miles an hour. So now when you're down to 2 and 3 miles an hour, or when you're pulling into streets and you have to back halfway out because you can't get through anymore, everything takes more time.
I can appreciate that, and I do understand that. I just want to go back to my main point, is that we're getting men in earlier, plow operators in earlier to respond earlier, so that we are ahead of things and not behind. That's all.
Understood. Again, I have to plan on what the weather forecast says, and I can't put myself in a situation where I run out of people. So it's a chess game. And I have to judge everything based on a weather report, what we're looking at, the men available. The best laid plans can be out there on paper, but if I call 30 people and get 10 people in, it doesn't meet the requirements that I need to utilize the plan. So again, it's not just one thing; it's a bunch of different things that have to be. They have to come together. We have to find a solution. Regardless of finger pointing, this one does this one does that. We need to move forward. Now, I can sit here and answer questions all night long about what we did wrong, but let's figure out what we did right, okay? And what we can do right from this point forward. We have the negotiation coming up. As of January 1, there is no more contract. So no one gets a raise. No one gets anything until this contract is negotiated. But again, we need to stand our ground, take a firm line on people needing to be here, especially in snow emergencies. And if we can dictate something in the contract that says either a date, November to April, you need to show up. Or let's just say anytime a snow emergency is called by the mayor's office, you have to be here. And it's the same thing in the summertime too, doing a blacktop. And I could do a blacktop, and then people want to go home at 2 and 3 o'clock. So it doesn't help any time of year.
Well, this is a chess game where the taxpayers and the public lost. So,
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Before I chime in?
How do I talk?
All right. So, thank you guys. Thank you, Ed, for answering these questions. I thank everybody, all the people that were here to ask these questions. And yes, it's a very difficult situation. And we normally don't get these in major snowstorms. And I rode around. I got calls from constituents. And just like everybody else, I was getting calls from constituents from city residents who are not in my constituents. What are you going to do, Tony? Who's my other person? What's their phone number? Can you come over here and take a look? I'm uptown. I was over by Linderman Avenue. I slid down the street one time, praying that I didn't crash into anything. I'm spinning out. I'm going all over the place. And I rode with Ed. I see what the men and women have to go through in the city of Kingston. It's scary sometimes. Imagine being in a snowstorm and you got to go up or down West Chester or Chester Street. That I wouldn't want to come down there. I wouldn't want to come down there in the regular 4x4 coming down that street or going up it. Then also we went around on a lot of these side streets. Yes, it was very difficult. We were over on Prospect Street. I think we went over there 3 or 4 times, and to get through there with cars on both sides, it was narrow. It was barely getting through. We went uptown, right? So it wasn't just in one location. We went uptown. The same thing. People double parked, in the streets to get their coffee or wherever it might be. And people parked on both sides because they were frequenting the businesses uptown, which is good. They were shopping local. But again, they try to get one of those plows up through there. It's very, very dangerous. You cannot go fast. You have to watch both sides. And usually they're in the truck by themselves. I talked to other places. I reached out to the town of Ulster because I was getting a lot of calls, a lot of Facebook. Well, why does the town of Ulster do this and do that? And I talked to people at town of Ulster. Town of Ulster doesn't have as many roads as miles as us. Town of Ulster, as Ed stated, has from November to April, no parking on the streets at all. So this is why I was trying to hope that we would get through and be able to educate the public, is that what can we do to do this better? Does the public have to, and again, I'm looking at it as well, the snow emergency procedures for the city of Kingston. It isn't confusing. And if somebody just moved in here, it's going to be confusing. It says at 7 a.m. the following day, vehicles must move to the opposite side of the vehicles. So people are like, oh, it's out there at 6:45 or 7:10, and people, they weren't straight. Does that need to be changed? Instead of at 7 a.m., it should be by 7 a.m. the following day, vehicles must move to the opposite side. So that means they must be moved to the opposite side before 7 a.m., by 7 a.m. Again, those are things there. And maybe do we look into having no on-street parking during November through April? Then we get into the fact that we're not like the town of Ulster. We have a lot of apartment buildings that don't have off-street parking. Then we've gone through where we've educated people where to park the cars in municipal parking lots. That we have, people, for whatever reasons, elderly, handicapped, whatever, who can't get to those municipal parking. But again, does that come back to, and not blaming you, neighbor helping neighbor? If you have off-street parking and you got a driveway that can fit 4 cars and you only have 2, and your neighbor next door down the street doesn't have any, maybe you reach out to that neighbor and say, you know what, park in my garage until them snow emergencies over with. If you have elderly people or people who can't get their cars from the municipal parking lot, being a friendly neighbor, you know what, let's help each other get out, and I'll move the car to the municipal parking spot for you. I was plowing out my driveway that fits 4 or 6 cars in it for 3 hours. And then when I got done with that, I went across the street and helped out my in-laws because I got to do that. Then I went down the street and helped my neighbor. Then I went across the street and helped my neighbor. And then I went up the street and helped my neighbor. That's what we do on our street. So again, maybe to educate neighbors, let's help out each other. If you see somebody that's not moved their car and you know it's no emergency, before the plows get there, and then they can't go down the street because there's cars parked there, or they can only hit certain mountain, then they got to go around because there's cars. Maybe you call that neighbor or knock on that neighbor's door and say, you got to move your car. Do you need help getting it out? That is what we should be trying to do. All right. Those are things that we can try to do. Those are things that we can educate the public on. All right. And then people are like, well, the town of Ulster gets all the way down to the blacktop. Talk to the people of the town of Ulster. When you have a lot of cars that are going, when it says stay off the streets and we had still people driving in the streets, that packs down the snow. The plows now cannot get that snow up that you're going to see the blacktop right away. It's going to take time. It's going to take the salt to work. It's going to take Mother Nature with the sun to get that down so the plows can come through and plow down to the blacktop. So these are all things that I'm hoping that we can educate not only ourselves, but the public on what to do and how to help out. Right? Because again, we're all have to, like Patrick said, we all have to work together and think of how we can do better. How we can do better for the next major storm. Hopefully, knock on wood, it's not another major storm. But those are some of the things I hope we can do. Neighbors helping out neighbors, plowing out neighbors. If you have an off-street parking, seeing if another neighbor can park in that driveway. Making sure, again, if it says odd or even, that we're on the odd or even side. Again, also making sure and maybe changes some of this verbiage in here and saying by 7 a.m. instead of saying at 7 a.m. So people know that they have to have their cars moved by 7 a.m. and not at 7 a.m. So they're coming out at 7:05 and then they're saying the plow's coming down the street already and we haven't had a chance to move our car or someone's out ticketing. So, and then also maybe we need to have a discussion about a local law where all vehicles from midnight to 6 a.m. have to be off the streets. These are all things that we can be talking about, and that's going to make it better and for the next major storm. Patrick?
Tony, as the chair, would you contact the city engineer and have him take a look at our policy of alternate street parking during a snow emergency? During a snow emergency, not during a non-emergency, it has to be declared emergency. But ask them, is it feasible to put all those cars into municipal parking lots or other parking lots? I mean, Tony, it might not be even feasible, but he might be able to take a look at that.
And also was one other thing again, I definitely will reach out to him, Patrick. And it was one other thing I had. I know I did speak to Chief Tinty. And again, you have 5 vehicles and patrol cars on, and they have to do other things as well. And they're trying to go around and be proactive in, trying to, in the past, get cars, you knew the person, you go up to the door and knock on it and say, can you move your car, blah, blah, the plows are out here, et cetera, et cetera. That's very difficult. And he's saying, in order for really to enforce this, if you want to get cars towed, your tow cars, then they would have to have overtime. They would have to bring in like 4 more patrol officers just for snow emergencies. And that's would be their only job if we go around. If DPW, they get a call from DPW to come and call a tow truck because the DPW can issue tickets. But as Ed stated, many times once a person gets a ticket, they're just going to leave their car there. They already got a ticket. They can't get another ticket. They're just going to leave the car there. The only, from what I was told, the only one who can call a tow truck is the law enforcement. They come out and tow cars. Now, do we want to get into towing cars away? No. That sometimes it's the same people that are not going out moving their cars. And many times their neighbors know who the ones are. Again, that's what it comes down to, knocking on the door or calling and saying, can you please move your car get it off the street or move it to the opposite side or whatever it might be because the plows are going to be coming through. So those are things that we can talk about and hopefully, Ed, you have your hand up?
Actually did too.
You're muted.
Yeah, I let Michelle go. She had her hand up first.
Yeah, Tony actually mentioned something about this to City Engineer John Schulteis today about possibly even looking at the snow emergency routes and seeing what those are so that we are all aware of them, especially with the parking situation. Maybe there needs to be a different set of parking rules for snow emergency routes. Because I know we had a situation here in Ward 9 where there was still a car on Westchester Street. So.
All right, John, Ed?
Yeah, just to follow up with that. Yeah, Michelle, you are correct. There was a car on East or Westchester Street for a pretty good amount of time.
About 24 hours.
Yeah, multiple calls were made on that car, and it took too long really to get that moved. As far as the rest of the stuff with the parking, with 500 tickets issued, if we towed every car, if we don't have enough parking lots, nobody does. No tow company's going to have enough room to put all these cars. So we got to get beyond that. We have to figure out a better solution. Towing cars is good sometimes because if you get one car towed out of there, it gets people's attention, and then they typically come out and start moving. But it shouldn't be the way it's done. Also, with the parking rules for snow emergency, you're not allowed to park 50 feet from the corner. On any other given time, it's 19 feet from the corner. So 50 feet back, you know, we've had cars, Tony, you saw, we went around all the turns. Every intersection had cars right to the corner. So if they're all backed up end to end, you have 3 cars in that 50 feet that don't belong there. So again, let's figure out a better solution.
Thank you. And again, hopefully we can come up with more solutions. You know, and Ed stated to me, and I think he's reached out to basically all the person. And you're more than welcome. You know, he's an open invite to get in the trucks and ride around and see what the men and women of DPW have to do in these snow emergencies. And you know, and also, you know, during paving as well. We don't get the many calls when it's during the summertime with paving, and the calls and the complaints are during the snow emergencies. So I'm just hoping that we can do a better job going forward, and all of us, and you know, that reside in the city of Kingston, we all have to work together, and you know, to try to make the situation better. Again, we got to come up with solutions, and you know, reach out to Ed if you have solutions. Reach out to the city engineer. Reach out to the mayor if you have some solutions that you want to, you know, address, and maybe they can work, and maybe not, they can work. Again, like I said, many years ago, there was no parking on the streets at all. That was before my time. I don't know what happened. The reason why it was changed to, you know, the opposite side. And again, was it because, you know, again, the makeup of the city of Kingston, we just don't have enough people with off-street parking. And we just don't have enough municipal parking lots. And so again, it's a tough one. And, you know, it's a tough one. And, you know, I would start with some of the things, again, change some of the wording here. And instead of saying at 7 a.m., be by 7 a.m. so people know that they have to have their cars moved by 7 and not at 7. And maybe that'll help some people get out, and it will help with the plows, that they know that 7 a.m. the plows are coming through, and that they need to be either off the street or on the opposite side. And so just keep on throwing those suggestions out, and to either Ed, to the mayor, to the city engineer, and hopefully we can get some things changed. Any other questions to Ed? Because we still have a few other guest speakers here. Ed, I want to thank you. Dan, I want to thank you. Ron, thank you for showing up and answering the questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. It took a little longer, but Tony, I canceled my plans this evening so I could stay on. So I'm glad we got to talk about it. A little bit extended time, but we're good. I hope everybody's understanding, so we're all on the same page. So everyone have a good night. If I don't talk to you, everybody have a great holiday.
You too, Ed.
Thank you.
Okay, now, speaker, thank you for waiting, Eleanor and Levy from the Arts of Mid-Hudson, the Kingston Latino Culture Study. Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. I have a whole different vision of snow now. So I'm here to speak very briefly about the Kingston Latino Cultural Study. When I started this job in 2016, within the first month, Linda Marston Reed, who's our executive director, and I met with Ward Mintz and Jeff Miller to talk about a study of the Latino community that they felt was really necessary to understand better the artistic and cultural needs of the community. It has taken a while to get up and going and then to finish, but we did do 2 phases of the study. The first, we were able to survey approximately 10% of the adult population of the Latino community. And then later on, we took 10% of that group and were able to do more in-depth interviews to get a sense of what they needed. We weren't able to ask all the questions we wanted because we were trying to be very considerate of asking questions about economics. Because that's a very personal question, and we weren't a government entity asking those things. Hopefully, some of those questions will get addressed through the round that the city is doing, because I have been talking with ADIFAR and with the consulting group for that. So hopefully they'll be able to get into some of that. But we did find some interesting things. Unlike Poughkeepsie, where I'm actually located, Kingston is a lot more diverse in terms of its Latino population, the largest group, of course, coming from Mexico. But we also have people from El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Ecuador, Colombia, Costa Rica, Venezuela, and Belize. And even within those groups, we have smaller groups coming from regional pockets. Many of you are probably aware that we have people who speak Spanish and people who speak, and we have a small group who speak a lesser known dialect called Quechua, who are here in the Kingston area. So it makes a really diverse and really interesting group of people to work with. And we asked them questions. We did ask them what they did for a living. We did ask what their level of education was. And we asked a lot of questions about what were they interested in? What did they like? What did they do? Were they artists already? What sort of arts were they interested in? What specifically, because I work in the area of tradition, we focused a lot on traditions and what sort of traditions did they bring from their countries of origin and what sort of traditions would they like to practice here. We found that in that group, we had a significantly higher interest in handicrafts from their country of origin, music and dance, and sort of a lesser interest in literature, film, popular culture, and modern art. So what came out of that is that the community would like to have more public celebrations of celebrations such as Easter around the traditions that they practice back home, which might include posadas or processions. Patron saint days. Every country and every town and every city has a patron saint, and all of those have separate celebrations. One of the most famous, of course, being Virgin of Guadalupe. We do have various churches doing Virgin of Guadalupe celebrations. I think there's some call for having larger celebrations, also for Dia de los Muertos and around Christmas. I know that for several years, David Sosa did a celebration in September for his Mexican Independence Day, and that was also around Hispanic Heritage Month. He hasn't done that for a while, and that is something that people would like to bring back as well, because that is like a true, unlike Cinco de Mayo, which is really a relatively minor holiday in Mexico, in September, it's a larger celebration. And the other thing that came up, the other two big takeaways were, while parents and adults had little time to spare for doing programs, they really wanted programming for their children. That we're really looking for ways in which we could help them teach traditions to their children, have activities for their children. And the third thing that came up that relates to that is language retention. Is they're finding a lot of the children who either came as babies or who came or who were born here are losing Spanish and are not speaking Spanish. Some of the older ones are retaining it because they're often translating for family members, but the younger children are losing language. And so as part of children's programming, could we work in some language retention? Because for them, it's taking language, the Spanish we learn in schools is not really conversational Spanish, and they also experience, you're already Latino, why don't you know Spanish already? So having some of this language retention programming would help with that. And we also know that it helps with for their futures as well. Anyone who's bilingual has a slight advantage in the marketplace. And so helping them retain that language is really important. One of the things we're planning, and I do have funding for, I want to say in terms of funding, I've had very generous funding from the New York Humanities and from parts of certain programming from the New York State Council on the Arts. I also had a very, very generous anonymous donation that has helped see us through. We have money to do a small program of children's programming language retention. I was also really lucky because I don't live in Kingston. I'm based out of Poughkeepsie. To work with an amazing group of Latino women who are known in the community and who helped me to gain some trust in the community. And one of the things that took a long time is as we were translating the survey from English to Spanish, we spent a lot of time not just on language, but how to present it in a culturally appropriate manner. So I'm ready for any questions you have.
Anyone have any questions for Eleanor?
And if you don't right now, feel free to email me. Alyssa has my email, and Tony has my email. It's been a long night already, so I get it.
No, and so you're just really this Latino cultural study. What are you looking for from the city government? I guess.
Well, I'm not going to ask for money because I know better than to do that in this year. I think when we come to start looking for places to do programs, we might need help with that. Although, we've done some programming with the Rare Center. I know that, and I've done some programming with Catholic Charities, but, finding locations where we can do programming that maybe don't cost us anything and that are centrally located. I'm very concerned about how people get to programs. And making sure that, if they don't have cars, there's still a way for them to get to programs. And getting the word out, mainly within your, I know it's not called precincts, but within your precincts, so that people know that there's programs coming and that we have these programs available. And I should note the other thing that's going to be a highlight of our programming is we want to train locals, people within the Latino community to teach the children. So rather than me coming in and doing the workshops, I'm going to be training people how to do the workshops. So that again is another layer of giving our citizens, your citizens rather, another advantage in the workplace when, they can now, they know how to lead a workshop and they know how to do some teaching. So our goal is to give to the community what we can to help them elevate.
All right. So again, when you get closer to with these programs, you can always come back to us and I will ask if you're looking for places. You always can always reach out to City Hall. I know there's several programs that are done with the Latino community at the Ever Hodge Center, as well as the school district, the George Washington School. And so those are just some of the few places off the top of my head that I know programs are already done out of those locations. So, feel free to come back. I will. And when it gets closer, I'm sorry, Jeffrey Ventura Morel.
No, I just wanted to quickly say thank you. As the one Latino on the council, I want to say thank you for the amazing work that you do. And I'll be contacting you. I'm interested in working with you.
Please. Yeah, and I just want to quickly say I worked with Veronica Martinez Cruz, Concepcion Barone, Maria Elena for Harrington, who many people know, and Susie Jimenez. So they were invaluable to me. I'm also looking for partnerships. We really would love to partner with any organization or person within the Kingston area, help pull this off. You'd be amazed what I can do for very little money. So thank you and have lovely and safe holidays.
Hold on.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining.
Do you have a question?
I just want to say thank you.
All right.
Oh, you're welcome.
Support their vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Okay, see you all
Alrighty.
later.
Take care. So the last thing that we have on our agenda is attorney-client session and with and Corp Counsel Dan Garstein. So if it's I'm looking for a motion to go into attorney-client and session. That's Jeffrey Ventura Mel, a second. Michelle Hurst. All in favor? Rita, do you have that communication, Rita?
I'm sorry.
Do you have the phone number?
No.
Already. And Lisa, can you send that to Rita or should?
It was sent to all the aldermen this afternoon.
All right, so I have to go online and get it, right?
I can text it to you, Rita.
In your email.
Okay, thank you.
Or Jeffrey's gonna and text it to you. We can't say it over the phone, so Jeffrey will text it to you. So everybody just has to sign off, mute out, and so we can go into executive or not executive.
So are we going completely out of this meeting right now? We're leaving this meeting to go into exec, or are we coming back to
We're gonna go
this?
to attorney-client, and we'll come back.
Rita, don't log out. Rita,
Okay.
So
Don't log
everybody has
out.
to turn off their cameras and mute their mics. Okay? Lisa, you're still on, and your mic's still open, and Lisa. Saying that. It's waiting for the organizer, Lisa.
No. You shouldn't need me.
Yeah, and Tony, I can still hear you over the computer though. So I think you're not muted. You there, Tone?
I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you through the meeting, so the meeting has not been turned off yet.
So I guess do I lead this, Elisa? If I'm muted.
No, you were not muted, but now you are. So you should be okay in your phone call, and you don't need the organizer. Because I never go into that.
Said everything that I told Tony. I said, this is up to the individual. I'm not saying you could do a great job or bad job. I said, that's on us. But as far as the cars and then going around, I said, let me tell you something. That's on the individual. They're the ones that can turn around and not to look in their cars. I said, Tony, I'm old school. If it were me, I'd just run a bulldozer around the streets. But you can't do that. So this the man now says that we're going to try to make it so that certain streets.
I'm trying to eat dinner in between these meetings.
You get that? You get that time? I didn't even get that. I didn't even get that. Holy cow. Running around, answering calls. So we still, I'm hoping to see Patrick comes back, but I think we have the quorum anyway. Is there any other discussion, anything that we need to talk about? All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I want to wish everyone happy holidays and a happy new year. And I hope that our city and all of us have a better year next year.
At a 21, knock on wood. Knock on wood.
Probably got better.
Yeah. So, yes, I want to state that too. I don't think I'll be seeing any of you guys before the holiday. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and let's be 2021 being rock solid.
Happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Can I have someone motion to adjourn? Patrick, second. Michelle, all in favor? All righty.
Good meeting, Tony. Good
Thank
meeting.
you, Tony.
Thank you.
Nice job, Tony.
This
All right.
conference is no longer being recorded.
Night.